ya la la la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la la.
Shabbat Shalom. This is my weekly COVID update. I just had COVID. Amber and Kyle took COVID tests. Are you okay if we put the masks away? If someone's not okay, we leave them on. Okay. That will hopefully make it a little easier to understand us. Shabbat Shalom on the screen. Shabbat Shalom in the space. Here's another COVID update because so many reach out and ask if I'm okay. I wrote this poem 5 weeks ago. So I leave it there for the month of Adar, but it doesn't mean that every week I feel as bad as during the moment when I wrote this poem. So I'm okay now. I'm still a little tired, but I'm okay. Thank you for everyone who is so worried. And also, we're working very much on figuring out whether in the summer we can maybe be maskless at some point in the summer. But summer's far away. And to my surprise, it became winter again. And it's going to snow. It's going to snow from today and all through Shabbat and possibly also into Sunday. And if you want to think for a moment about a stream of flowing water, and that is what a mikveh is. We immerse ourselves in a stream of naturally flowing waters, and you become a little physicist, and you don't insist that water is a fluid liquid, but maybe that water is light little crystals falling from the sky. Then maybe you can think about the snowflakes outside as a stream of light little purity that is settling on your head and shoulders and jackets and cars and houses just given you a moment of cleansiness, cleanness, cleaning yourself from the week. I was amazed and so happy to see Janelle and Richard back with us. So I want to invite Janelle and possibly also Richard. Would you join us in the middle and light the candles with us, and welcome back home? Amen. And we read on page 129, Yishakoach, at the very, very bottom, the words by Martin Buber. 129. Help me perfect my ways of loving and caring. Inspire me to make myself whole so that I may honor your name and create a world of justice and peace. It's 121. We can do this again. Help me perfect my ways of loving and caring. Inspire me to make myself whole so that I may honor your name and create a world of justice and peace. In this week's Torah portion, we read about the dress of the high priest. There are many, many different details to the dress of the high priest. But one thing that we learn about it is that at the very bottom, along the seam of his dressing, there are rows of interchangeably little bells and pomegranates, made out of gold, of course. Not just little bells and pomegranates, but made out of golds. And the rabbis talk a great deal about why was the high priest ringing? What was that little ring for? Who was supposed to hear it? And they had all kinds of ideas. Some that said it was supposed to be a sound for the rest of the Israelites and the other priests to know that the high priest himself was approaching so that they could, find a posture of respect. And others said it was for God. It was the moment when the high priest was approaching the tabernacle that the sound of the bells was knocking on the heavenly doors as if the priest was knocking on God's door itself, and God would begin to get ready for God's visitors. Some say the sound of those bells, very, very softly, made up for all the sins that the people committed in the realm of Lashon Hara, the ugly words that we speak. So we have this little dingle-ding outweighing whatever escapes our mouths that we afterwards need to regret. And then we have other voices that say those were, very early on, a form of tzitzit, of those things that the priest was carrying with him to remind himself of the way in which he was supposed to perform this task. So what were the pomegranates for? And interestingly enough, they don't have a lot to say. They just say they're beautiful. So if you think about this mixture of respect and dignity and beauty, finding the right way to encounter something, someone, the high priest God, then this is maybe a moment, a good sense of where we are at right now in time. Entering Shabbat, trying to find the right sounds, trying to find the right inner posture, thinking a little bit about which ones of our words need a little dingle-ding that we said throughout the week, and just reminding ourselves, refocus on what is beautiful. On page 130, Psalm 95. Five, 132.
Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachevu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'ishtachevu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Vishtachevu Lehakocho Romemu Adonai Eloheinu Vishtachevu Lehakocho Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu Ki Kadosh Adonai Eloheinu Romemu
138.
Dodi likrat kala yadada yadada lalala b'nei Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala yadada 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela hitoreri kiva ore kumiori Uri, Shirda Beri, Kevod Adonai, Alaying Nagila, Lecha Dodi, Likrat Kala, Yaladai, B'nei Shabbat, nekabela lecha dodi likrat kalai yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela.
Verse 9. Boi v'shalom ateret bala gam b'simcha uv'tzahala toch emunei segula boi chala lecha dodi likrat kalai yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat
nekabela lecha dodi likrat kal yalalai 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela.
140. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. Uzamer l'shimcha elyon. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. Le'agid ba'boker chasdecha. Le'agid ba'boker chasdecha. Ve'emunatcha ba'leilot. Ve'emunatcha ba'leilot. Tov lehodot l'Adonai. It's good to be joyful during the day and during the night, during the light and during the darkness. Before I give my sermon, though, Cameron, what kind of ball is that? It's a baseball. Yes. Okay, great, because I didn't know that, and we have a picture book full of balls, which Zivi loves. Zivi's a little sick, by the way. But I could not identify this ball. So, very good. It's a baseball. Now I know. Let me rise for this, because I think I realized on the YouTube, at least, when I give my sermon sitting, it is really hard to hear me. So I will stand up, if that's okay. Yeah, okay. Just for you. I want to talk about God's faces in the world. God has many, many different faces in the Hebrew Bible. All of you know this. I don't need to tell you much about it, but I will just a little bit. We have on the one hand a God who is present in the space, omnipotent, does things, performs miracles. And then in other parts of the Hebrew Bible, we encounter a God who is not there, entirely absent. And in Hebrew, there's a word for this, a term. It's called hestel panim. And interestingly, it has everything to do with the book we're going to read on Purim. Hester sounds like Esther. And the book of Esther is a book in which God is not there, not mentioned, not even once. So, in this week's Torah portion, God is there and not at the same time. What do I mean by this? So we know about the life of this one person who accompanies us through 4 of the 5 books of the Torah, Moses. That Moses was able to see God. Lo kam beYisrael keMoshe od. We sing in a very famous synagogue poem that's called Yigdal. There was no one like Moses before and after. And one of the reasons that there was no one like Moses is because actually Moses, so the Bible sometimes indicates, was able to talk to God face to face. He could see God. God would look at him. In other places it doesn't sound quite like that, but there are some places where it does sound like that. And then we know that when the people were trying to build the Mishkan, they were hoping for something similar. They brought all their gold, they brought all their jewelry, they found the artists among them to erect the sanctuary so that God would live among them. Every day they could go and experience what it means to be close to God. And then it happens. God descends from up there to down here, looks like a cloud or a fire by night. And something happens to Moses. Because when this happens, Moses stops to be able to encounter God face to face. Because from that moment on, God is hidden in the cloud, too vague to grasp. And at night, God looks like a fire, too bright and too hot, and frankly, too dangerous to come too close. And Moses can't see God anymore. And the tablets, this very, very real testimony of God's words manifesting among the people, disappear in an ark and behind 2 walls of carpets and rugs. And they will never be seen again. So what happens here? What happens in this Torah portion? Does God come closer? Or does God retreat into an entirely different realm between and behind the carpets and the rugs and the ritual and the layers and layers of social hierarchies between, like an Israelite, or even less like some of us, and the high priest? If we think about the story as we know it, it happened already before. When they stood at Mount Sinai, the people were so excited. Everyone wanted to get up there. Everyone wanted to be there. And then the mountain started to tremble. And fire and clouds and an earthquake and everything you can imagine overwhelming and frightening in the world back then happened. And they got afraid. And they didn't want to come too close anymore. And after 2 commandments that actually we've heard enough. You know what? Why don't you guys go up there and then you tell us what God has declared to you? And this is what happened. So it's not entirely sure how big the yearning actually was. It was there, but maybe not too much to it. So, think about this generation of Israelites. They saw the miracle of the Exodus, the parting waters. The following generation, as we learned in religious school with my Bat Mitzvah class, they witnessed a very similar miracle when the waters of the Jordan parted in a very similar way, when the Israelites crossed from the land of Jordan to the land of Israel. So they were witnessing a God that was ultimately graspable and experienceable, I don't even know if that word exists, in this world. But on the other hand, they also, the generation that crossed over, learned another really bitter lesson. This God, this very visible God who could part the waters, promised them, if you go into the land of Israel, I will make all your enemies surrender. They will disappear magically. And I will give this land to you without efforts, without any prices to pay. And you will inhabit it for generations to come. And you know what? The story is told to us in a way that we kind of forget. But this actually never happens. Not even for one day is this land just peaceful. The people will get there, but the other people just don't disappear. They will continue to fight each other, and the wars will ask for victims. So it's an interesting question. Is God there? Is God not there? Is the fact that sometimes God seems to be there enough for us to walk through times when God doesn't seem to be there? And sometimes, even if we're very, very sure that we heard God's voice and God promised us A, B, and C, what do we do if A, B, and C just doesn't hold up? It doesn't entirely happen. So we have this word in Hebrew, lehastir. Lehastir, to hide. To be there, but not be visible. So you know that something is behind this wall because you're over 6 months old or whatever it is, but you can't see it. And just because it's there, it's not helpful because it's not close enough. So what do? It's sometimes really dangerous if you try to look for God in places where God is not. There are a lot of people surrounding us who think they encounter God, but maybe they don't. Maybe they just read certain things too literally. Or maybe they take things for signs that are just not. Some things in our physical universe are completely at random. Some things happen to people without them having done anything that was justify what happens to them now. So it's dangerous to look for too simple signs. But what are we supposed to look for? Many of us are watching the news these days. And as I'm standing here, I don't know if the people on the screen can see this, but there's a sunflower bouquet right behind me, brought to us by the wonderful Carly. So thank you for that. And we watch and watch and watch. And we don't know what to make out of this. There are bombs falling on churches, on schools, on hospitals. There are soldiers marching into nuclear power plants. There are streets and bridges disappearing who have been there for hundreds of years. And we see other things. We see buses full of people and trains full of people. We see babies sleeping in subway stations. We see dogs and cats sleeping with their owners, sleeping in subway stations. We see lots of politicians talking and lots of journalists talking. We see interviews and hear interviews of people in the Ukraine and in Russia telling us what they see and what they think we should do. And we wonder, where is God? And we also wonder what was happening there in the hidden that we didn't see as we were watching the Olympics, or as we were not watching the Olympics, obviously, right? But what was happening, and what was happening before? And where is God when mothers are waiting and they don't know where their kids are? And people live, Ukrainians live all over the world, and they don't always know where their relatives are stranded right now at this very moment. And the answer might be really painful. It might be that God is where God always was and always has been. It might be that God is right here, but that God is hidden from our eyes and really hard to grasp. It might be that God is a cloud, formless and shapeless and vague. And it might also be that God is like fire, too bright and too hot to approach. So we, as we are here, we yearn for this cloud and the fire like the Israelites did. We want to feel this cloud more than we actually do. We want to feel protected and cared for and safe. And we don't. We don't always feel that way. And then we just have one question to answer. How do we want to live if we feel protected only sometimes? If we feel safe only sometimes? Do we want to live believing that God is there? Or do we not? Do we want to walk like we believe that God is there? Or do we not? And what does it even mean if we decide that we want to live and walk with God, even if we cannot be sure, even if we can't reach into the cloud and feel that something is right there when we need it? There are many answers to these questions, but I try to come up with a couple of them to just give you some ideas. Maybe walking with God sometimes means to know when to switch off the news so that you can eat and you can sleep and you can preserve your sanity and be there for the people surrounding you. Maybe walking with God means that you keep on reading the news even if it hurts. Maybe walking with God means to choose carefully what kinds of news you're consuming. Maybe don't go with the most sensational pictures. Maybe try to find as much information as you can, just also not to miss the opportunities where you're told about a way that you can help, so that you will be there when you can actually help. Because we are called in a very, very global world to protect the vulnerable, even if they're very far away, because in this very global world, we're all connected. To walk with God might also just mean to cherish every day when we can put our kids and grandkids to sleep in their own beds, and our dogs snore in their own pillows every day. It's the little joys that we have. Jewish philosopher Susan Sontag once warned us not to run after the biggest pictures, the loudest videos, because they just become part of our system of fear and hate, but to focus on words. She's married to a photographer, so that was an interesting essay to write by her. But to focus on words and to focus on our own personal experiences of the world more than we focus on pictures and videos of places. Walking with God means also to learn to acknowledge the good and the bad on both sides without looking away. Walking with God means to learn that there are Jews living on both sides of almost every border in this world. Learning to walk with God means to accept that Jews make their crosses on all kinds of voting papers in different places. Learning to walk with God means also to acknowledge the fact that the people who might need us most right now might not be Jewish. Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're not. To walk with God might also mean not to ask for murderers at this point of time. I don't know if I mispronounced this. I don't mean murderers. I mean martyrs. Martyrs, great. But to acknowledge the dignity of those people who are just fleeing for their lives. And walking with God, again, might just mean not to look away, but to keep on reading and to keep on watching, to keep on witnessing and learning so that you know and you can speak and you can train your own heart muscles and stretch and grow just as who you are. The Hasidim teach us many things. They also teach us that sometimes God is where you do not expect God. That walking with God might mean to find God in places where you thought God is invisible. And they put this teaching together in a little song. It's a song about God that is hidden, a God of darkness. But it's also a song about God who is right here between us. And I translated the song, more or less. So I'll sing it once in Hebrew, and then we can sing it together in English, because the words that I found are easy. You can just pick them up. Ve'afilu be'astara. Astara means the hidden place. Shebetoch ha'astara. Bevadai gam sham. Nimtza Hashem yitbarach. And even in the darkness that is born out of darkness, even there is God. This is what you can be sure of. And even in the darkness that is born out of darkness, even there is God. This is what you can be sure of. Ve'afilu be'astara, shebetoch ha'astara, even there is God. This is what you can be sure of. Shabbat Shalom. And we are on no page, but then we are on page 146.
Tehom, el tehom kore, tehom, el tehom kore, tehom, el tehom kore. From the deep I call to you. From the deep I call to you. From the deep I call to you. Tehom, el tehom kore, tehom, el tehom kore, tehom, el tehom kore. Baruch hu et Adonai hamevorach.
Olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamevorach leolam va'ed.
On page 148, please read with me. Praise to 149. Praise to you, Adonai your God, for whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way in which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, for whom the evening flows. Baruch atah Adonai, Amari v'Aravim. 150.
Ahavat olam, ahavat olam,
Ahavat olam,
ahavat olam,
Ahavat olam, Ahavtanu,
ahavat olam,
Ahavat olam,
ahavat olam,
Ahavat olam,
ahavat olam,
Ahavat olam,
Ahavtanu,
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 Ahavtanu.
How deeply you have loved us. How deeply you have loved us. How deeply you have loved us. Adonai Eloheinu.
How deeply
We have loved us. How deeply you have loved us. How deeply you have Adonai Eloheinu.
Ahavat olam,
Ahavat olam,
ahavat olam,
Ahavat olam,
ahavat olam,
Ahavat olam, Ahavtanu,
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 Ahavtanu, Adonai Eloheinu.
Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael.
152.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, ושבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. 160, מי כמוך. Isn't it interesting that once the Israelites, not 160, yes, 158, sorry. I'm just not good with numbers. So, the Israelites crossed the Red Sea, and they were looking where to go now. And if we just, identify with them for just one quick moment, they were already looking for a cloud and a fire, the stars, the constellations, where to go now. And to sit in this complete feeling of being lost and still to acknowledge that miracles happen every now and then, right here. 158.
Adonai, mi kamocha ne'adar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osefele, nora tehilot osefele. Malchutecha ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe, Ze'elianu ve'amru, Ze'elianu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam
va'ed. And sometimes it happens that the cloud really seems to descend, and it seems to wrap us in a huge hug, like a talit, like the roof of a sukkah, like a warm blanket into which we wrap ourselves each night. And that is a moment when we can say this prayer, Hashkivenu, wrap us in love, on page 160. Ushmo tzedenu vohenu lechayim ulshalom me'ata ve'ad olam baruch ata Adonai haporeh sukkot shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. On page 164, we begin the Silent Amidah. And I want to invite all of you who want to rise and pray with me, rise and pray with me. And for those of you who just want to sit a little huddled in your chairs, allow yourself to sit huddled in your chairs. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ezrat Sarah. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hametim. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, המחזיר שכינתו לציון. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, הטוב שמך ולך נאה להודות. Baruch atah Adonai, Baruch atah Adonai, המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. We come to the moment of the Mishaberach, which is on page 371. We say Mishaberach all together for Dave, Kate's Klingensmith brothers. We say Mishaberach for Marjorie Lazar, Bill Lazar's sister. We say Mishaberach for Courtney Alexander, who is the sister of Monique Summers, our new member in Billings. And we say together Mishaberach for Fred, who's not doing well. And maybe you can just do the right thing. Think of them, leave them alone, because that's what they wish. And when the time comes, be there for Jane. So we also say Mishaberach for Jane. Page 371.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mekor Habraha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu mekor habraha lehavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We don't say Kaddish for cats. We just don't. But we can think about cats. And we can hold the cats that we lose, especially after 17 years. We can hold those cats close to our hearts And we know that actually people who lose pets, especially after a long time, psychologists have found, they undergo just the same stages of mourning and grief and learning and renewing and finding a different life. So where was the Mansfields? And just in thought was this cat. But we're not saying Kaddish for this cat. It is a new month. It's February. So I want to invite all of you who have lost someone in February. Oh, it's March. Just don't listen to me. Ignore the page numbers, ignore the timelines. I'm just not good at that stuff. It's March. It's March, yes. Good, great. So if you lost someone in March in any other year, it's the time for you to rise. If you lost someone within the last 12 months, it's the time of you to rise. In the last month, in the last week. And if it is And if it is your custom, please rise, all of us, and let's say together the Kaddish, unless you want to lead us in the Kaddish, Richard. Amen. Amen. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה. Amen. 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 May God comfort all the mourners. Page 657. 657.
Ose Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru Say Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru Oh, say Shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru
We learned that at the moment when this tabernacle was done, before God moved in, but after the Israelites finished their work, they couldn't put it together. The stuff was too heavy. So what did they do? They brought everything to Moses and piled it up in front of him and said, "Now you go." And Moses said to God, "What do I do?" And God said, "Just move your hands and pretend to do something." And while while Moses was moving his hands, the tabernacle assembled itself and just as it appeared in front of them in the middle of the desert. And then Moses, looking at everything they had done together, the people and Moses and Bezalel and God, gave a blessing to the people. And the blessing goes like this: "May it be the will of God that God's presence rests upon the work of your hand every day. And may it be the will of God that you walk in the beauty of God's presence every day of your life."
יברכך אדוני וישמרך, יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונקה, יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. And now we'll go there and I'll grab the wine and maybe someone can help me and grab the challah and then we can make Kiddush. Thank you, Lauren. Oh, maybe not. But if you were intending to, then thank you.
יום השישי ויחול השמיים והארץ וכל צבאם, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי מקדש, ויחל אלוהים ביום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו, אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, בורא פרי הגפן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצבנו, ושבת קודשו באהבה ורצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה בראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר לציית מצרים. כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת.
The white is wine and the red is grape juice.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לחם מן הארץ.
Shabbat Shalom. And as I'm cutting challah, here come the announcements. This week we have tomorrow Janelle is teaching Torah studies and not me, as I have announced in the newsletter. So what can I say? So Janelle is teaching Torah study, and at 6 p.m. the book club is meeting. No, it's the week after. Okay, so tomorrow is just Torah study. On Sunday, we learn Hebrew together at 7 p.m. And if you still want to join us, we're in the later half of the Hebrew alphabet. So this is where you would pick up if you joined us now. On Monday, we don't do anything. On Tuesday, the caring committee is meeting at 11:30, and the board is meeting at 6. On Wednesday, we have the Purim Carnival with Shalom kids. Every family who has kids, no matter which age, is invited, as long as you dress up a little bit and you're willing to have your face painted and stuff like that. Thursday, I don't think we do anything. Friday is Shabbat Zachor, which is the Shabbat precluding Purim. And we celebrate Purim a little bit too early with the Shalom kids. But for Shabbat Zachor, all the progressive rabbis in Montana are putting together an online Zoom service helped by our very own Richard. It starts at 6, so 30 minutes earlier than our regular services, and it shouldn't take longer than 45 minutes. And Ed and Lori and Mark and Francine, even who is back from surgery, will all do this together with Alan Zetcher and Aina. So please join us for this next Friday online. And then that Shabbat, I'm actually teaching Torah, and in the evening, the book club is actually meeting. And I think this is our week. So Shabbat Shalom. And thank you for being here, and thank you for being so patient. And if you were impatient, then thank you for just like staying put.
Hi. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.